So I'll start, as most of you here know, but a few of you may not. My name is Mitchell Goldman. I worked with the Billfish Foundation on this presentation about why billfish are important culturally and economically to the New England area and the Mid-Atlantic. And for those of you that don't know what billfish is, a marlin, a swordfish, or a sailfish. I don't know whether, okay, there we go. So billfish are all in the Isotrophidae family and of bills. The largest species, the black marlin, grows to be over 1,500 pounds. It's about 15 feet long. They all have a bill on their face, which is used to slash and stun prey while they're hunting. Billfish are also really fast. The fastest fish in the ocean is the sailfish, and it reaches speeds of up to 68 miles per hour. Marlins reach speeds of 50 to 60 miles per hour. Billfish are also a keystone species, and for those of you that don't know what that means, a keystone species is a species that is necessary to maintain the health of an ecosystem, and they're also highly migratory. So they help keep in check a lot of the ocean's ecosystems. They're found in all the temperate waters in 3 out of the 5 oceans throughout the world. So people love billfish because of their physical attributes. They have very colorful patterns, they have very flamboyant fins, and their infamous bills make them very easy to recognize. They also bring tradition and a sense of community to a lot of places. In like Cairns, Australia, off the coast of Costa Rica, and even right by us, Ocean City, Maryland is actually known as the white marlin capital of the world. And along the coast of New Jersey and Long Island, and even by us in New England and off the coast of like Boston, a lot of people fish for billfish. And catching billfish proves that you are a good angler. And that means a lot, especially by us, because the bill fishing grounds are so far offshore. They are about 50 to 75 miles offshore, and people, as a result, have to have like really big boats and have to put in a lot of effort to catch them. They also are incredibly strong and incredibly fast, and because of their size, that makes them a real difficult species to catch. And again, they're found in 3 out of the 5 oceans in the world, and there's a large and growing number of anglers and conservationists interested in billfish. And part of what the Billfish Foundation does is that they make it so that more and more people learn about them and know about their importance. So as you can see from this graphic, there's a lot of billfish species found throughout the world. But the ones I'll be focusing on that are found in our area in the Mid-Atlantic are the white marlin, the blue marlin, and the swordfish. And this would be a good time to tell you the swordfish is colloquially referred to as a billfish, but it's actually not a true billfish. It's in a different family, and there's a few ways that you could tell them apart, because as you can see, they all look pretty similar. A swordfish has a much longer and a much more broad bill than a marlin, which is more short and rounded. Swordfish bills are also like about the length of the body, whereas a regular billfish bill is not. There's also something fun. It's called a caudal peduncle. A swordfish only has 1 caudal peduncle, while other species of real billfish have 2 caudal peduncles. So swordfish and marlin and any billfish are all very highly migratory, like I said before, and they swim thousands of miles. So the Billfish Foundation has the largest private tagging database in the world for billfish, and they travel very long distances, and it's really important for scientists to get that tagging data. So there's something called the Marlin Highway, which is what's depicted in these 2 pictures on the left. Both of these marlin were caught in similar places. The one on the left was caught off the coast of Grenada, and the one on the right was caught off the coast of Venezuela. And these marlin eventually made their way back to Maryland. These are both white marlin, by the way, but they took what's known as the Marlin Highway, and the tagging allowed scientists to know where they were first caught and where they were wound up. And obviously, this is a really long distance in a straight line distance, like what's depicted here. But in reality, these marlin probably swam a much larger distance than that, just because they swim in circles and zigzags, and they go all over the ocean while they're on this path, so to speak. And it's like incredible. I mean, if you look at that 2,000 miles in 89 days, and they're not following that straight line path, they're going all over the ocean, which is just crazy. And this is a swordfish. Again, it's really important to tag them so we know where they're going. This one was caught off the coast of Islamorada, Florida, and was caught off the coast of Nova Scotia. So billfish have been really revered for like many years by a bunch of different people, and they caught the attention of the people who wrote Finding Nemo. That's why they named Nemo's dad Marlin, because he swam all over the ocean looking for his son Nemo. So I'm just going to play like a little clip just paying homage to like marlin's migration like they did in the movie. Okay, so as you could tell, they've been revered for a really long time, and they were actually first caught in our area. The red paint people lived on the border of Maine and Canada, and they were the first people on record to hunt swordfish. They used swordfish bills as decoration and as tools for hunting, as you can see on the picture on the bottom left. And they disappeared around 2000 BC, and nobody really knows why that is. But scientists are really interested in learning more about them, and archaeologists are as well, just because they had to have really, really good boats and really good communication skills in order to catch swordfish like they did. Even as things got more modern, people had trouble catching them. And they actually wound up killing a lot of people and puncturing the holes in boats, like you see on the picture on the bottom right. Across the ocean too, Aristotle nicknamed them the gladiators of the sea. It was not uncommon for people to be killed by swordfish, and they're known to sometimes get violent. It's really rare, but they sometimes will. In 1967, Alvin, which is the submarine pictured on the bottom left, which is actually the submarine that discovered the Titanic, was attacked by a swordfish at a depth of around 2,000 feet. So, like I said before, people often got killed by swordfish, and this is what they used to fish for swordfish in the 19th and 20th centuries. So, wooden yachts and smaller wooden boats called dories were employed to catch swordfish, which is what's on the bottom left. And anglers would take out the larger boats, harpoon the swordfish, and then tie barrels onto the end of that harpoon to make the swordfish like float up. It would tire them out because the swordfish would dive deep after they were harpooned. And then after that, they would be reeling in the swordfish. And even after being harpooned and like with barrels on the end of it to drag them back up to the surface, the billfish would still have enough energy, or the swordfish would still have enough energy to actually puncture holes in the dories and sometimes even impale the anglers that are trying to reel them in and kill them. Another method that was used to catch swordfish back in the day was anglers would walk on a narrow plank or a bridge to harpoon the fish, like what's seen on the right. And what's interesting about that is billfish or swordfish were actually bycatch from whalers for a very long time ago. They come to the surface to sun themselves in order to warm up. And as a result of that, they were really easy for people to see and spot while they were hunting whales, and they would just harpoon them and then bring them back as like bycatch. It was like an easy way to profit. But as people discovered that they liked the meat more and more, they then actually fished for them like they did on the left. So today or nowadays off of New England and in New York and New Jersey, billfish are normally caught about 50 to 75 miles offshore in most areas. They are normally around the continental shelf, which is that ridge with all the dots. They use the Gulf Stream to migrate up and down the coast of the United States. In Florida, billfish can be caught just several miles offshore. The continental shelf is much closer there, as you can see, like here, like literally 4 miles in a lot of areas. Highly migratory species permits are required to fish for the billfish. And what isn't a highly migratory species permit are sharks, billfish, and tuna species. And anglers have to adhere to the regulations and quotas on the permits really like religiously and strictly, and they need to keep checking back on NOAA's website to make sure that they are adhering with the rules, or else they'll get their license revoked and they won't be able to fish for the fish. And the reason the highly migratory species permit exists is because there's a lot of economic potential for these fish, and they're really important to the economy. And people love fishing for them. The recreational fishery is huge. There's also a lot of growth potential in New England for the billfish fishery. So anglers are notorious for keeping secrets and they don't want to tell people things, but this is like an extreme case of that. The Goodwins discovered an incredible sight fishery for white marlin off the coast of Nantucket in the 90s. And if you don't know what a sight fishery is, it's where you see the fish swimming on top of the water. And the fishery is only 3 miles off the coast of Nantucket. And the reason this would happen. It would happen in the summers. The Gulf Stream would come close enough to shore that eddies would break out, which is what's depicted in this picture as warm core rings. And the fish use the Gulf Stream and these warm rings to like travel and find the food that they're after. So these rings will get really close to Nantucket sometimes, and the white marlin will be in those rings, and people could actually fish for them and see them while they're like on a boat. It's a really big deal. If you know what the tarpon fishery is like in Florida, it's a sight fishery too, and you have to use really light tackle so the fish aren't spooked or like afraid of the line, because if they see the line, they won't bite. They're very finicky fish. And white marlin are the exact same way. So they're really large fish, and they are very hard to catch because you're using very light tackle. So it attracts a lot of people to it because a lot of people fish for the challenge. So the economics of bill fishing, NOAA estimates that anglers spend about $46.7 million each year on private fishing trips. Highly migratory species fishing contributes about $510 million in total sales each year and supports about 4,500 jobs. And many offshore anglers travel outside of the United States to go bill fishing, and the data only represents what is spent in the United States. So as a result, the total spending in the billfish fishery could probably be doubled or tripled with what I just said. And the top 5 private expenditures are boat fuel, bait, groceries, restaurants, and auto fuel. And tournament fishing is a really big part of what bill fishing is. And the top 5 tournament expenses are merchandising costs, catering, labor expenses, site fees, and lodging. Boats spend a ton of money at these tournaments, and they're really important to the economies that actually host these tournaments. But they did not start off as something that was like a good thing. The picture on the left shows how dense the white marlin population is off the coast of the mid-Atlantic and New England. Again, this is known as the white marlin capital of the world. They're all around here. And back in the day, tournaments used to just catch them. They were called kill tournaments back in the day because every fish caught was killed. And sites like what are seen to the picture on the right, or I guess it would be your left, but what's seen there was not like an uncommon scene throughout like bill fishing tournaments throughout the United States. A lot of that has changed though, and I'll get into that a little bit later, but there's a lot of positive tournaments. Boats can spend over $75,000 at select tournaments, and this money is spent on hiring a crew, fueling the boats, eating and drinking, docking the boats, and about $6.4 million in charitable donations by highly migratory species tournaments were made in 2016 to 2017. Nowadays, tournaments are also really proactive, and they're very open to adopt conservation practices. So they'll actually seek out scientists and organizations like the Billfish Foundation now to help them regulate what they're doing to make sure that it's sustainable. One way they do this is through modified release, which is if you catch a marlin, a white marlin, like in these tournaments that I'm depicting, the minimum size limit is 66 inches. But if you were to catch the tournaments, first off, make the minimum size requirement way larger than what the government would actually mandate to keep the fish. And then from that, the tournaments would send out messages to the people participating in the tournament saying, oh, somebody caught a fish that's 72 inches. Nobody can keep anything smaller than that. And tournaments draw a lot of people, again, just tourists, even people who aren't fishing, just because of how large the boats are that have to fish for billfish. There's normally like 6 or 7 people on a boat fishing just to catch one fish because they are so big, strong, and fast. And a lot of people actually get inspired by going to these tournaments to like look at billfish and become more aware of like ocean life around them just because of how beautiful they are, and people wouldn't have access to see them otherwise unless they were waiting at a dock. A lot of famous people actually fish in these tournaments. One person who does is Michael Jordan, and he fishes on his boat, the Catch 23, and he goes around to different tournaments throughout the United States and fishes. So tournaments also have a lot of benefit to science. About 99% of the fish that are kept at tournaments are actually donated to scientists because they're so hard to catch. Scientists go to these events to actually look at the fish that are caught and like analyze them and see how healthy they are in a particular area. And one event that's really cool is John Graves, a scientist, and the Billfish Foundation actually went to one of the largest tournaments in the United States, the Mid-Atlantic, and they discovered a new species of billfish from analyzing the mitochondrial DNA in the hearts of white marlin and round-scale spearfish. So the mitochondrial DNA is the last to alter in a species, and in the heart also, it's farther back to actually like alter. So they're really hard to tell apart if you're on a boat, and they have scientists on boats fishing too and like looking at the fish, but it's very hard to tell them apart. One key way is that the round scale spearfish are actually brighter than the white marlin are. Once a billfish gets excited or like angry, they'll light up. Their colors literally look like almost iridescent, as you could see. And one reason the Billfish Foundation exists also is to do away with any misinformation that's out there. And people are really interested in billfish once they hear about them and like learn about them. But there's a lot of misinformation out there. So what I circled on the infographic over there is not true. Hatchet marlin is a nickname for a round scale spearfish, and they're not two separate species like what's being portrayed in that bottom left-hand corner. So for this presentation, I also interviewed 3 prominent people in the fishing industry. These captains and tournament director are really like highly respected people. They know a lot. They're experts in their field. And like, I really thank them for all the time they spent with me on the phone. They literally spent hours with me talking about this stuff. And they were really interesting, and their insights were incredible. And the people I spoke to are Captain DeJulian out of Florida, Rick Weber, who is the tournament director of the Mid-Atlantic tournament, which is one of the largest bill fishing tournaments in the world, out of New Jersey, and Captain Galvin out of the New England area. So I asked them all at the beginning when I spoke to them, what is one word you would use to describe what a billfish is? And they said apex, which was really amazing to me that all 3 of them said the same thing. And Rick Weber put it beautifully. He said, billfish are apex predators, the apex of fishing, and the apex of many anglers' fishing careers. And he's absolutely right. Again, you could see with like the picture over there, they look like almost like a dragon coming out of the water. They're huge. I mean, you can see what it's doing to that boat. They're just incredible fish. So they all also emphasize the importance of tagging billfish. Tagging billfish shows scientists and anglers how fast species of billfish grow. It tells us where they travel to and when, and it helps create a bond between conservation-minded anglers. A lot of fishing communities often get like almost addicted to fishing for one species or one type of fish. And the Billfish Foundation helps to like make sure that those bonds are like kept and are strengthened. Again, the number of people who care about billfish is growing also because their range is expanding. But on the right is a photo of a tagging awards ceremony that the Billfish Foundation does every year, where they bring anglers in and give awards like who tagged the biggest billfish, who tagged the most billfish, things like that. And 60 to 70% of what is known about billfish is from tagging efforts. And they really don't do much harm to the billfish. They're that little yellow plastic thing sticking out of the billfish right below its dorsal fin. So all these captains also stressed the importance of longlining and sustainability. The United States has the best standards for longlining in the world, but we could always continue to improve. And a lot of long lines could stretch for up to 50 miles, and they have a lot of bycatch. But there's also a lot of other methods that could be used to sustainably harvest billfish. One such thing is green stick, which is when there's like a 40-foot pole that hangs off the top of a boat. And then from that pole, there's like 4 to 8 baits that are fluttering on top of the water. And behind that, there's something called a bird that like weighs it down, and they're fluttering on top of the water, and the billfish will come up and like hit it. And then the angler could reel it up. And another way of doing it is from buoy gear, which is a way that baits are vertically suspended in the water column. This was actually, it's like a new method of fishing that was invented off of California, but it's now spreading to Florida and is used to harvest billfish, particularly swordfish off the coast of Florida. Something really important to mention, in my opinion, is that the government is about to open up a closed zone for fishing off the coast of Southeast Florida, which is a really big deal because it's the only scientifically proven fishery closure that's ever worked. And it's worked for swordfish. It actually replenished their population from the 80s when there was like a huge issue of them not being around because they were overfished. They're going to open it back up to longlining, which does a really bad thing because it allows a lot of billfish that aren't being targeted to be caught. Believe it or not, every species of billfish in the continental United States is actually not supposed to be harvested except for swordfish. And other fish such as like sharks and even like sea turtles will eat these long lines, and it'll be a real problem because it'll deplete the ocean around South Florida. So if you guys want to get involved with that, there's like a petition on the Billfish Foundation website. If you guys want, I could like help you and show you where to find it and to sign it to just tell the government basically like not to open up that closed zone because it would do a real number on the swordfish population in that area, and it would do a number on a bunch of fish populations in that area. The swordfish in that area are actually still allowed to be harvested. They use buoy gear to catch them, which is a way more sustainable method than longlining would be. So anglers also had to adapt for new conservation methods. Anglers were not happy about this. I was speaking to Captain DeJulian about it. He actually ran seminars about how to hook up with a new hook type called a circle hook. And what he got from it is that all dogs are willing to learn new tricks to help save fish that they love. And by the end of it, as people got more used to circle hooks, they actually proved to have a 2 to 3 times more effective rate at catching billfish than a regular J hook would be. And many tournaments only use circle hooks, but recreational anglers vary on hook type based upon their bait. So if you're trolling a bait, which for people who don't know, that means you're driving while baits are suspended in the water column, a J hook will land in the corner of a fish's mouth. Whereas if you're not trolling, a J hook could wind up getting swallowed by a fish, landing in its gullet or in the intestines of that fish, and they'll wind up dying because of it. Even though they may swim off and look perfectly okay afterwards, they could actually die because the hook will be in their intestines and they're internally bleeding. There's also different types of circle hooks that are better or worse for catching a fish and releasing it properly. Circle hooks that are inline are much better than circle hooks that are offset. And the photo over here is of a tag data report. So anglers are often encouraged, and it's getting more and more popular to release the fish that they catch. Tag data reports are used for a bunch of species, but this is the one the Billfish Foundation uses specifically for billfish. Anglers catch the fish, leave it in the water, put the tag in, and then release it, and then they record the information of that fish. The Billfish Foundation then keeps a record of that tag and that fish, and then hopes it's recaptured somewhere else so they could learn where it goes, how fast it's growing, etc. So the Billfish Foundation exists because the outcries of anglers were not being heard at the federal level. Recently, it's still very important that it exists today. The head of the Highly Migratory Species Commission actually said, if money is not spent in recreational fishing, it will be spent on golfing, to Rick Weber, which is a real problem because of how many jobs there are that are supported by it and the amount of money that's actually in bill fishing and highly migratory species fishing in general. And through research, education, and advocacy, the Billfish Foundation can help ensure that people directly and indirectly affiliated with the fishery are represented properly while ensuring the health of the billfish fishery and the ocean. So thank you so much for attending. I'd really thank you all. It really means a lot that you came out to support me. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to thank my boss, the Director of Conservation, Peter Chai-Bong-Sai. Also, he's been incredible to work with and a great mentor. And I'd like to thank all of my professors that are here as well. And if you have any questions, now's a good time to ask, or if you want to learn more about it, the website link is below, and there's my phone number and the Billfish Foundation's number too. So if you have any questions, ask them now. Thank you, guys. Rafi?
How long do billfish normally live? Like, how many times would you expect they would migrate north to south during their lifetime?
I'm actually not sure. I know that a lot of them are sexually mature after 9 years, but
what was the question, Mitchell?
Yeah, how long do billfish live?
Depending on the species, there have been records of them living over 30 to 40 years, and those are going to typically be your bigger fish, like your blue marlin and your black marlin. So that's a great question. Just to give you a general sense too, some of the biggest fish, which are called granders because they go over 1,000 pounds, those are the ones that can reach 12 to 15 feet in total length within probably, depending on optimal conditions, like a lot of food to eat and so forth, they can reach that in about 20 or so odd years.
Reese?
How long does it take the fish to
migrate? The question was, how long does it take the fish to migrate? I mean, it depends on the species, and it honestly depends on the fish, it seems like. There's not clear data on it. I mean, that one fish you could see traveled from off the coast of Grenada to Maryland in 89 days, which is really fast. But I think it depends on the route they're taking. But Peter, have you a better answer?
So that's a great question. So I hate to say it's variable, but it is definitely variable. I just had a great conversation with one of our scientists today about the importance of eddies. And I'm not sure if you know what eddies are. And I think Mitchell actually explained a little bit how there's warm water that basically circulates in certain areas due to the Gulf current or the loop current in the Gulf of Mexico. And what's really interesting is if they see where food is, they essentially have a one or two track mind, and they're going to go where the food is, no matter where that is. We don't typically see many tagged fish go that distance in that short amount of time. We've had a number of fish go transatlantic from, I think we had one from St. Helena, which is, look it up, it's in the middle of nowhere in the Atlantic Ocean, to North Carolina. And that took, I think, 10 years or so that we got that recording. But it all really depends on where their food is and if it's time to make babies. So they really have a two-track mind. So if there's more fish and more prey for them in one area, that's where they're going to go.
Yeah. Sorry, what was that? That are not keepers, you mean? Oh, sometimes yes. A lot of tournaments are actually all catch and release now, but the ones that are not, again, they have that modified scaling, and like almost all of the fish go to science, and the other few that don't are actually given to like homeless shelters at the end of the day. And it's very sustainable actually now compared to what it used to be. There's always work that could be done, but it's a very sustainable practice now.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I heard, I'm sorry, just to butt in, just to make sure I understood what the question is in regards to if the tournament, that's harvesting fish, is that sustainable? Is that the question, Mitchell?
Yeah, he was asking, correct me if I'm wrong, it was still hard to hear you, but if any of the billfish that are caught in the tournaments are like eaten, right? Is that what you said? Sorry.
Yeah, I was asking, like, are they like killing them or not?
Yeah, he was asking if they're killing them and not eating them.
Yeah, so that's very rare, actually. Mitchell said it correctly. Billfish are a rare event species where they are not found very frequently, obviously rare event. And most of what we know, scientists or nonprofits like the Billfish Foundation come from the hard parts like the otoliths and the head pieces and the fin clips, everything that we can get from the tournaments. And while billfish are typically not eaten in the domestic US, they are eaten in other areas, and is something that is actually enjoyed by a number of people. But in the United States, it is not sold legally, and it is not allowed to be marketed. Excuse me.
Yeah.
How did you get into this?
I've always loved marine life, and I love fishing. I've actually never caught a billfish. I've always just kind of loved them. But yeah, I've loved fishing my entire life. I live on Long Island, and like I fish like on the coast. I don't really go offshore ever, but I don't know. I like love it. And when we do get a few shots at like pelagic fish every year, like we'll get a false albacore run for like a month, but by me, because we're really inshore, we're pretty far, or I'm pretty far west on the island. We get them for like 2 weeks, so I love doing that. I just I've always had a real passion for marine life. Like I've loved going to the beach and things like that, and like looking for crabs and things like that. So I guess that's kind of how I've also, I don't know, I've just always loved fishing and seeing what's out there, I guess. Thank you for asking though. Yeah.
What's your favorite billfish?
My favorite billfish? Probably a white marlin. Yeah. I think they're pretty, and I think it's really cool how many there are around here. I also just want to catch one day, so I think that's my best shot. Okay. Any other questions?
Hey, Mitch, I have a question.
Yeah.
Great job on your talk. I really enjoyed it. Oh, I can turn on my video. So I guess So, okay, if people aren't eating them, at least in the domestic US, are there healthy populations of them, or are historical declines really put them in a bad position?
Yeah, so I know for swordfish, the population, if you look at NOAA, is deemed healthy right now. I'm honestly not sure about the other billfish, but I would assume at least around the United States area, it's healthy. Peter, if you have a better answer than that, that would be
Yeah,
great.
that's not a problem. That is a loaded question, Sally. So I appreciate that. And Mitchell, great job mentioning swordfish. You definitely did your research on that. It is one of the few commercial species that have recovered due to marine management, which is quite shocking. And the reason it's not eaten in the United States is essentially because everything that Mitchell said before, it is a highly sought after game fish. And it is something that people enjoy just catching and releasing. There hasn't been any sort of market for them really ever in the domestic US. The only places that you find it, which I mentioned earlier before, is places that essentially use fish as their main protein. If you go to Hawaii, if you guys are lucky enough to go to Hawaii, they might have it on the menu there. If you go to Guam or any other US territory, they might have it there. Japan will definitely have it. The Caribbean will have it. But a lot of problems with it here in terms of, or not seeing it here in the United States, is because organizations and conservation organizations like TBF and a number of others have made it a mission of ours to make sure it is not, just because of the fact that we don't know enough about them, to be completely honest. And like Mitchell said before, is a lot of the stuff that we're based off of understanding these families of fish is based off of the constituents that are catching and releasing, that interacting with them. If you think about other fisheries, if you're looking at tuna or wahoo or mahi, those are commercial species. You don't see a lot of game fish that, or at least offshore game fish, that are with such a sparse amount of data. We are still, to this day, and I'm sorry this is being long-winded, it's a very important point. We are still learning things today about billfish. Just to give you a really good example, is we just finished an age and growth study of Atlantic blue marlin 2 years ago, the largest of its kind ever, to learn more about Atlantic blue marlin. And it wasn't more than 1,000 individuals. And when you consider looking at other species, whether it's mahi or tuna and other targeted commercial species, you're given lots more data to work with. And we just want to make sure, and we have made sure with things like the Billfish Conservation Act, that it is not sold and marketed here in the US.
Thanks, that's really interesting.
Okay, anything else? Okay, all right, thank you all so much. Thanks, guys. All right. Okay, I guess I'll end the meeting. Thank you guys for coming virtually. Okay.
Great job, Mitchell.
Thank you. All right, bye.
You're going to